Okay, I will call us to order at 6:31 by my kitchen stove. Sorry, the thing I hate about Zoom is it's toggling back and forth. All right, so our consent agenda this evening includes previous minutes and policies. There's a bunch of minutes there, so shall we attack that one first? Anybody have any corrections, comments, or concerns?
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda as written.
Okay. Comments, questions, or concerns about the motion? Okay. So by roll, Emily?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Kat?
Yes.
And Mary, are you with us?
She's on. She is not yet connected to audio, but now she
Okay.
maybe is. So give her another try. Can you hear us, Mary?
It's a beautiful place to live. Utilities suck, though.
Can you hear me, Morgan?
We can now. Yep.
Oh, there you are, Mary.
Good
We-
Lord, I'm trying to do this with 1 bar of 4G.
Well, thank you for sticking with it, Mary. I just called us to order. Lisa has made a motion to accept the consent agenda as written, and we have all voted except you.
Of course, that's yes. I vote yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any updates to how we flow through the agenda tonight, folks? Lynn?
We have not really focused on the school spotlight yet, and I have not communicated this 2 months in a row to Doreen, so I apologize. It's on there. We just found 20 minutes because I don't believe Sandy was intending to do it. You are intending to do it? You are? You are on it. I apologize.
I'm muted.
I did see something in her report, so.
I missed that. Thank you.
So is it time for me now?
Okay, do we have any visitors? Hold on one second. Do we have any visitors, Morgan?
No visitors.
Okay. Yes, now it's your turn, Sandy.
Okay, so I may need some help with this because the whole sharing the screen and being able to get this out to everybody. So honestly, I just want to say it has been great to have teachers and staff back in the building. It has been, I don't know, the building looks amazing. People are happy. I cannot wait to have students back next week. And oh, don't you start barking now. Hang on. Go out. Go. And in light of the fact that we could not have our open house, and I know Lynn and I talked about this, we wanted to do a live virtual open house, but that was hard to maneuver. So we did our virtual open house, and I just think on kind of an uplifting thing, I just like to share some of our virtual open house videos. So how I do that, I'm not sure. Morgan, I don't know if anyone can help me figure this out, or do I just share my screen?
Click the green share screen button at the bottom, and then you should see all your open windows, and click the window that you want to let us see.
So it says host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Oh, well, let's try something else.
Or I put the link in the chat. I don't know.
Try again.
Okay, let me say okay. There we go. So I want this. So if I can find one that's super funny, which I may not be able to, let me see. So everyone's in there. This one's kind of funny. Fun. I don't know what I did.
Looks like you maybe hit pause.
I think I messed it up.
Well, it looks like it's at the end, Sandy, to me. I wonder if it's dragged the red line back to the beginning.
Listen.
I got a feeling deep within my soul, and right now I really need to let you know. IRRTCPC, Montgomery stands for integrity. Oh, how you guys doing? Hey, it's Mr. Ho. We're gonna have a great year this year. We're gonna do a bunch of plays. We're gonna do a bunch of musicals. We have to keep our distancing. But don't be upset that we might not be able to sing as much as we'd like to, because there's plenty we can do here in music, and I'm so psyched to see every one of you. Can't wait to see your smiling faces September 8th.
Hi guys, we missed you. We're gonna have PE on Mondays and Fridays, whatever day you're here. And it's gonna be mostly outdoors, that's why I'm out here. Make sure you bring your sneakers. We're gonna have fun. See you at school. Miss you again. Bye.
Hi everyone. I missed you all so much. I hope you've had a wonderful summer, and I cannot wait to welcome you all back to school and actually get to see your faces in person. This year's going to be a little bit different. You won't see me much in my office, but you will see me in the classroom each week doing guidance lessons. So I can't wait to see you all, and I'll see you so soon. Bye.
Hi everyone, I hope you had a great summer. Missed you lots. This year, Art and Library will be coming to your classroom on a cart. So have no fear, you'll be able to create and read a lot this year. We'll see you soon.
I got you, yeah. And you got me, yeah. I got you, yeah. And you got me, yeah. I got you, yeah. And you got me, yeah. Take me, I'm yours, and swing me all across the floor. Shake me down until the sun comes back around. And even when I turn my love into a song, and I will sing it on back to you as I come home. So we can love deep, see clearer, burn brighter, feel more than we ever did before. Yeah, we can swim oceans, climb mountains, dance like nobody's watching, live life like we never did before.
So I won't need to continue to show you more, but the link is in the chat. So if you'd like to see more, I don't know how I end my screen, stop share, there we go. So if you'd like to see more, the link is in the chat, and feel free to go in there and get entertained, because they are kind of fun. Some of them are super serious, well, right, you know, saying everything that we need to do. And some of them are excited. It's one of the funniest ones to me was Jessica Tandy, who is now our K1 multi-age teacher. And I don't think I've ever seen her so animated as I did in her video. So kind of fun to watch. So that's it for me.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're at you, Lynn, with your superintendent's report.
Okay. My computer just glitched for a second. I'm trying to close screens. Okay. So I'm also going to share my screen. So I have quite a bit to go over with you. today, and then I want to leave time to see if anyone has questions about the reopening plans. So I'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to start by just talking about personnel. The last time we met, I was trying to figure out how to staff our virtual academy for those kids who chose to be fully remote for the year. So here is the lineup. So Gabrielle Lumbra is now the principal of the virtual academy, K-12. We have high school students who are enrolled in VTVLC, and in exchange for our nearly 40 students between the two high schools who will be in VTVLC, we have loaned them 2 of our teachers for the year. We were able to do the teacher loan instead of paying for those spots. So Russ Lamontia and Elisa Martin will be working with VTVLC for the year. And we also have some students at the high school level who will have a completely remote program that will be staffed by the Richford Junior Senior High School staff. In our middle school, we have, we really, in order to be able to do this, we had to take some staffing from each of our buildings in order to be able to create this. So we have Kyle Kramer teaching ELA. We have Kelly Hyde teaching math, Robert Hickey from Sheldon, who's teaching global citizenship, and Caleb Shaw teaching science. So I've put the community that they're coming out of after their name. For our elementary teachers, we have Sarah Farr in kindergarten, Trisha McFadden in 1st grade, Amber Farnham in 2nd grade, Emma Holcomb in 3rd grade, and Michaela Mativier in 4th grade. So our electives for our students in our fully virtual academy will be taught by our own electives teachers, and that part of the plan is not completely finished yet. So we're going to be assigning some of those classes to our existing elective teachers, and we're going to try to do the same thing and make it as equitable as possible. In terms of special education and related services, we have a special educator who's dedicated specifically to VTVLC and supporting those high school students. We also have a special educator who is supporting, primary job is to support students in the TAPS program at Richford High School and in the fully remote learning model as well. And then in terms of students needing special education support who are in the K-8 virtual academy, those will be taken care of by our school-based special educators. So those will be the special educators that already have the relationships with the kids and with the families. The same goes for speech and language, counseling, and other related services. We do have, whoops, I did not mean to hop there. We do have an interventionist who's been assigned to support the virtual academy. She's an FNESU staff member, Ann Maury. So instead of Ann splitting her time between supporting in person in multiple FNESU schools, her time will be 100% online supporting students in the virtual academy. So other shifts that we had to make behind the scene in order to make it work to have all of these teachers dedicated to these remote academies, we had to look at Richford Elementary School. Well, we really had to look at Enosburg Elementary School because their music teacher went to VTVLC for the year. So Richford Elementary is sharing their teacher with Enosburg Elementary. So that person will be splitting their time between the 2 schools. And because we took Gabrielle Lumbra out of Enosburg High School, we have Aaron Brophy from Cold Hollow, who's going to be spending half of his time over at Enosburg High School in the math lab in order to make that work. We still have some hiring to do for the virtual academy. So we're looking for an interventionist, and it's to be determined whether or not we may need some paraeducator support. We did for Sheldon. Christy was really excited to get a technology integrationist kind of at the last moment. And then unfortunately, he became a part of the puzzle to fill the need in the virtual academy because he's a licensed global citizenship teacher. So we're looking for tech support for Sheldon right now. So in order to be able to do this, Sandy already tipped. There's a change that she identified that happened at Montgomery Elementary School. So I just wanted to give you, as the NMV board, you know, what adjustments had to be made in each of the physical schools as a result of the virtual academy assignment. So in Bakersfield, we hired for that science teacher, but we really needed that science teacher for the virtual academy. So for this year, the middle school science and global citizenship does have to go back to being taught by that same teacher. In Berkshire, we had to take a middle school teacher out of Berkshire to teach math. And there was an elementary literacy interventionist who's teaching an elementary group. In Montgomery, we took the 3rd grade classroom teacher, and as a result of that, the numbers were lower in K1, so they were able to create a K1 multi-age classroom and shift that 1st grade teacher into the 3rd grade role. In Sheldon, the numbers were low in kindergarten, so they were able to take that from 2 groups down to 1 group. And the tech integrationist moved into the middle school assignment. So we are looking for some IT support for there. So in general, we have some staffing needs in FNESU, more than we would in a typical year. So we know as a result of the work on reopening that we are expecting higher than normal absentee rates for both students, but then also staff. So our need for substitute teachers is pretty substantial right now. So if you know people that are looking for work, please encourage them to consider applying to become a substitute teacher. So we're looking for people to sub for teachers, support staff, nurses. We have found a few people interested in getting on a substitute nurse list, so we're happy about that. We're also anticipating that we're going to need to hire some additional custodian support in several of our schools in order to meet the need of the increased load for the cleaning and disinfecting. We have quite a few openings right now for paraeducators throughout the supervisory union. So that's something that we're looking to fill. And the nurses, this isn't something that I put it on here more as informational. The last time we spoke, we were looking to hire LPNs, and we have filled both of those positions. So we are excited about that. And I do think that happened after our last meeting. I can't really see anybody's faces, so I can't tell if anybody's shaking their head or not on that. Do have several resignations, and I apologize. Some of these, this is the piece I was trying to get from Morgan right before we started. Some of these you might have already known about and approved, but I would welcome just a global approval. These are support staff who have resigned their positions for a variety of reasons. Either they've taken other positions, or they've moved on for other reasons. So if you would like, you can accept their resignations. It's kind of a formality. You can accept their resignations as a whole if you want to.
Sure. Does somebody want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion. Lisa?
Thank you, Lisa. Let's vote by roll. Kat?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Miranda? Miranda, are you with us? Okay, I'm going to move to Erin.
Yes.
Mary.
Yes.
Miranda, I can't see you. Is Miranda there? Did we lose her?
Wondering if she might have
there.
lost service.
She's still on.
I vote aye. And Lisa?
Yes.
Okay. We will pass this without Miranda.
Okay. I didn't have anything under student, although it was in my agenda for today. So I wanted to just give you more information about the students who are enrolled in the fully remote option. So 9 through 12, we have, these numbers have been moving a little bit day by day, so they're not completely solid yet, but this is my best guess today. 38 students enrolled in VTVLC between our 9th through 12th grade in both high schools, and 9 students who are fully remote but will be a part of the TAPS program at Richford. And we have around 201 students enrolled in the K through 8 virtual academy. So that number is bigger than we were anticipating. So we do have some pretty big class sizes there. So I've been working with that principal and recognizing that we're going to need to put some supports in there. I am wondering if there are going to be some shifts in the first days of the school year, and if some people will, based on them seeing how things are going in the schools, want to shift back to in-person. So that's something I have my eye on, and just am recognizing that I'm likely going to have to put more support there. The other piece, just about the reopening plan, I sent that to everyone. The community has seen it at this point. It's out there and it's visible. It is a living, breathing document, and that's something that I just want to remind everyone. So if you're printing it, it's likely by the next time you take a look at it, not going to be the most recent document, because every time guidance comes out, it often requires me to make a change in our framework. So you all had an opportunity to take a look at that. Was there anything that you had questions about in that reopening framework?
Lynn, my question isn't exactly related to the reopening, but it's back to the bigger numbers in the K-8 virtual academy. Do you think some of that is because of the uncertainty around childcare for families, and they just found that it was going to be easier to know that their child was doing the same thing day after day instead of having to shift back and forth between childcare and school?
I don't know, Lisa. Like, that hasn't come to me, that those decisions were based on childcare. The two most common themes that I've gotten about families that have enrolled in the fully remote option, it feels like there are two patterns. One is that people don't want their children to have the exposure to the virus, and they're worried about a return to in-person learning. And then there are other people that are not fond of the restrictions that we have to put into place because of the virus and the health and safety guidance that we have. So I feel like there are two. That's the way I've been understanding the rationale. It's possible that some of that could be related to childcare, but I haven't seen that or heard that yet.
Okay, well, I'm thinking maybe that does have something to do with it. I've heard some other districts around the state where that's really, it's so unsettled, and parents don't know, and school's starting in less than a week. So it was, I think, easier for some parents just to go remote. And I'm not sure if it's K-8 or 9-12 that really, well, it wouldn't really be 9-12. It would be 6-8, I guess. So K-5 or 6-8. But just to keep that on your radar, that maybe once the childcare hubs are set up and there is adequate childcare, maybe you'll see a change in the numbers.
Yeah, I think that's possible.
I just want to share with you, I was conversing with a coworker of mine who's also on a school board in like the Northfield, Marshfield area. And I was blown away by the numbers of students that we have in the virtual academy. And especially when you compare it to sort of our average school building population. And she was saying, her school buildings are similarly sized, and they had like 40 kids. Like, by far the number was to go in person and not to be fully virtual. So it's an interesting question, Lisa. I wish we could point to it's this, that, or the other, because I think you're right. For some parents, particularly of the littler kids, the ability to plan and find daycare that fills potentially these weird holes is difficult. So I don't know. It's an interesting phenomenon.
So I also wanted to just give you just a quick financial outlook in terms of where we're at now. And this is probably close to a week old at this point. But the last information I received is that the deficit in the education fund is still trending downward. The last time I heard, we were down nearly 60 million. So the deficit at one point was up over 120 million. And the last report was at like $68 million. Still not good, but it is not as bad as it once was. So it's still something we're going to have to keep our eye on. There's been a flurry of activity and work coming out of Morgan's office, and I'm assuming that Morgan's going to talk a little bit about that. He's been doing a lot of grant writing and paperwork associated with the FEMA grants, and I know today he got our coronavirus relief fund paperwork in, and we know that there's some other information that is going to be coming our way about more grant opportunities for our schools. One is the gear grant, and the way I understand that is some of the money that has come from the federal government. There are different pots of the money. And we've talked to you about several of those pots. The gear money went to the governor, and the intention, I believe, was focused on education, but it was his discretionary fund. He could choose how he wanted to use that money. So the way I'm understanding the gear money is that it's going to be targeted towards CTE programs because they don't actually qualify for some of the other relief money. So we should be hearing more about that in September. Lisa, you brought up the Child Care Hub piece. That has been a lot of information coming out recently about the Child Care Hubs. And we've tried to push some information out. There is quite a lot of grant money. I think it is upwards of $12 million that's available for people to start up Child Care Hubs. So there are people working at the state level to try to match people who have available facilities. So if you have real estate, an open space, with someone who's willing to do a startup for childcare, they can match the two of those people together and provide funding, startup funding for that childcare site. So that's pretty beneficial for both of the business owners. It's also certainly really beneficial for our families. And they also have done some work to increase the base amount that qualifies families for subsidy for childcare. So that's increased as well. So I think it's nearly 80,000 at this point. I think it's 78 or 79,000. So quite a lot of our families can qualify for that additional childcare subsidy assistance. So we do have a hub in FNESU. Our Wednesday programs have now been approved as a childcare hub through the state. We got word on that today. So we would love to find a way to be able to offer more than what we are. But as you can see from what I shared from our staffing results, I'm very worried about our staffing, our ability to staff our in-person educational part of this work. So I would love to find some childcare partners willing to take on some of this within our community. And as the leader in FNESU, I would certainly partner with them to try to help to bring another hub online in this area, because I definitely think there's a need. There's also elementary and secondary school relief fund money that I think Morgan has already talked to you about. I'm just kind of giving you an overview of all of these. So we've already been given an allocation under ESSER. And I know Lisa is back at it in Montpelier, or virtually, I'm assuming. Last week, she came back in session on the 25th, I believe. So this is a pretty important session for us. And, I will just say this, Lisa, I would give this board this information, even if you were not a legislator on our school board. But this might feel like a shameless plug, but I'm going to do it anyway. So some of the priorities that are really important for us in the education world in terms of, I'm kind of going out of order, but I'm going to go to the third bullet here. We have almost 50 students who have enrolled in homeschooling this year. 50 more students who have enrolled in homeschool. So we're expecting that our ADM number is going to drop pretty substantially, which you all know in terms of tax rate is going to have a pretty big impact. So we're hoping that the legislature will look at that and find a way to hold districts harmless for the 2021 school year because of the pandemic. That's why we're losing those students. So we're hoping that they will find a way to hold us harmless for that. It's also very important. The start of the school year was pushed back to September 8th. So that gave us 5 additional in-service days with our teachers. We have a fixed number of days with our teachers. So we actually The statute right now says 175 student days, and we're hoping the legislature will amend that to 170 for this school year. If they do not, we will be facing 5 student days at the end of the year that we won't have staff. We'll have to pay additional compensation to staff those 5 days. So that's pretty important to us. The other piece is the unanticipated expenses that are coming as a result of this pandemic are pretty substantial. I know Morgan has been working really hard with the CRF application to unpack some of those. Some of those are being covered by things we already had budgeted. We're just moving some of our resources to be able to do it. But a lot of those expenses were not budgeted and are going to be significantly impactful on our local budgets. As you all know, those were approved before we even knew what the coronavirus was, or they were developed before we knew what coronavirus was. So I'm worried about the health of our budget, and I think it's important. There was $100 million that we thought was going to be allocated in the governor's budget towards education, and that's no longer in there. So I think making sure that our school districts are adequately funded to take on all that we've had to take on is pretty important work. And then certainly as we're going into another year, having not all of our kids in person, the broadband accessibility continues to be a really huge priority for us. And I know Lisa in particular has been working very hard on the broadband accessibility. Lisa, I thank you so much for your work on that. There are some hot spots that have come up in our communities as a result of some of that work. And I know that there are other, I never get the acronym right, Lisa. I want to say hub, but it's not, it's a CUD, right? Is it
CUD? CUD.
Okay. So the communication, something.
Union District, Communication Union District. And most of our towns have, no, that's not true. Some of our towns have signed on.
Some are still considering, the last I was told. So a lot of work going on there, and I hope the legislature will continue to look at that. Right before this meeting, I got an email from the VSBA. The annual business meeting is coming up. That's usually the conference that I go to, and sometimes board members come with me to the conference, but boards always have to figure out how they're going to handle the annual VSBA meetings. There are resolutions that are presented at that meeting to be voted on at that meeting. So the board has to appoint some sort of a voting delegate for that. So for this year, the annual business meeting is going to be virtual, and it'll be on October 29th at 5. There will be a virtual webinar on September 10th to present those proposed resolution changes. So I was hopeful that one of you would be able to jump on and watch the resolution to get a sense of what those changes are, because at the October meeting, it will be important for the board to review those resolutions and then appoint the voting delegate for NMV. Is anybody able to participate on the 10th? Didn't really see any information about when.
I can do that, Lynn.
Perfect. Thank you, Mary. I think that was Mary. It's very hard when I can't see people.
Yeah, sorry. I don't dare turn my video on or you'll lose me forever.
Well, because I'm sharing my screen, I only can see just a few people in a really tiny square on my screen.
Miranda
Lynn,
is in the waiting room. Sorry.
Lynn, it would be helpful if you could just send me those details around the time and how I kind of participate in those in those VSBA webinars.
So I don't have any more information, but I'll email you what the VSBA sent me today. And then it really is just that it is on that day. I suspect it's going to be going to you too, but I will send it to you.
Okay.
We did receive that today just before the meeting too.
So how about if you don't have it, Mary, let me know and I'll send it your way.
Yeah, I'll take a look. I'll let you know.
Okay. So one other big thing kind of happened this week in the changes that continue to come our way. So we have been able all summer through the summer meals program to be able to offer universal free meals to everyone, all children under 18. And typically when you shift into the school year, the regulations around that change, and you can only provide your meals to your enrolled students. So there has been a waiver that's being released by the USDA around universal meals. So it looks like until December 31st, or until that funding runs out, we're going to be applying for that waiver for FNESU. So we'll be able to more broadly offer universal free meals to all students under 18. So that adds another layer to our food service. There will be more meals that we'll be producing as a result of that, and there will be additional delivery, which will also require some additional staffing. So we're still working out the details of that. Again, that goes into the staffing piece from earlier. As we will make it happen. It is possible that we're going to be hiring more staff to be able to accomplish some of the things that we need to accomplish. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Lynn, I just seriously have concerns about staffing in all ways, shapes, and forms. We have enough trouble to find custodians, paraeducators, substitute teachers in a normal year. So I do have a lot of concerns around that. So if everybody could just put their thinking caps on and try to think of people who may not be working full-time right now, or may have in a previous life been a daycare provider or a custodian and might want to just help us out temporarily. I think all of us together are going to have to work to come up with enough people to keep things running.
I agree, Lisa, that would be tremendously helpful. That's the kind of thing that keeps me up at night, is worrying about, you know, we want to do our best job, and we're committed to doing our best job, and we need all of our people to be able to do the best job. So it is important. I know the governor addressed this on Tuesday at the press conference, that we have quite a lot of people still on unemployment because not all industries are fully back yet. So even if it's someone who could only work part-time, I would still encourage them to apply, because we have work that we could use them for sure.
Another thing I want to say, Lynn, is you're not the only superintendent to have given that wish list to the legislators in their district and their school boards. So it doesn't matter whether the legislator is listening or not. It's the same list, and it's important to make it known to your school board members that those are the asks, and they're really important ones. So we're definitely going to take them seriously.
It's good to hear. Thank you.
Well, and I think that some of those, like the lowering of the required student days, I think I just assumed would have been changed. And so it's important that we not assume that those, you know, changes actually happen. Sorry, Mary, go ahead.
No, not at all. Excuse me. So Lisa, I have a quick question just to kind of piggyback on Lynn's kind of, you know, taking advantage of having you here on our board with your in at the State House. That, you know, I've been in touch recently with a woman at the PSB quite a bit. She's been quite kind and sympathetic to our plight, but really ultimately her hands are somewhat tied. And in a lot of my back and forth with her, kind of what I'm trying to talk to them about the $3,000 cap on kind of helping people access broadband, is that it's such a drop in the bucket. It's one grain of sand on the beach for those of us on the back roads who really live remotely, and I'm not alone in that. And so she says that really needs to be addressed at the legislative level, because that $3,000 cap on the aid that was set at the State House level. And it's great for people who live, you know, off of main roads, but I can only imagine how many thousands and thousands and thousands of families all across this state are like I am, 2.73 miles from the last Comcast thing. So it's $65,000 to run a broadband line. So I just am hoping that we need to do both. The state needs to do both, because if we really need our kids and our families working remotely to be able to access broadband, so many of us live very remotely, and $3,000 is just a drop in the bucket.
So thank you, Mary. Mary and I have had a lot of back and forth emails about this, and she was referring to the Public Service Board and some relief money that was passed in the form of a LECAP grant, which is basically $3,000 to a customer to help them with accessing broadband. That $3,000 just kind of came out as a result of X number of dollars being available in the budget out of the coronavirus relief funds, and dividing that by the number of people who still need access to usable broadband. So that's where the $3,000 comes from. And I totally understand that it's not going to help you, Mary. I hope it helps some people. There are also some other grants and programs out there. Lynn mentioned the CUDs. Some of your towns have joined a CUD, and it's very, very new. But if you get in touch with your town clerk, whether your town has joined one or not, and I'm not saying that that's a panacea, it's not going to solve everything. It may not really solve anything, but I urge people to get in touch with your individual town clerks and select board members to see if they can be better advocates for needing broadband, because the more people that talk about it, the more chance we have to be heard and to actually have something done about this. There's a map that was published today, and I can share it with Lynn and she can share it with everybody. And it's a map of the area, all the areas in the state that have K through 12 students who lack adequate access to the internet. And it's a brand new map. There have been others done before, but this one just came out today. And it's really fascinating because we are right in the heart of not having enough, as you all know. So I'll share that with Lynn. It's pretty fascinating how many of us are without adequate services to do any of this remote learning or remote working. So we're working on it, but the squeaky wheel is going to get the grease, and people really, really need to be vocal about it in your own towns, because I think it's going to come maybe not from the legislature as much as it's going to come from just towns getting together and deciding to do something about it. So for what it's worth, make yourselves known.
Lynn, I have a question about the hubs on Wednesday. Are those going to be at every school location?
So they are at, I should know this, Catherine. They're going to be at every elementary school. And where I'm questioning a little is that the middle high school, I think, is combined in one, and I'm not certain about the other one because they're not a LEAPS program.
So as a hub though, is that tied into the school staffing? Did you just say LEAPS, or is it going to be its own staffing?
Because Wednesdays are fully remote for everyone and it's a callback day, we have some support staff that we can dedicate to running that hub that day. So we have also support staff that are going to have to help with the meals and the meal delivery, but the taking responsibility for what's happening in those hubs on those days. So they'll be providing support for students, and they'll also be providing enrichment opportunities. Our LEAPS site directors in most of those situations are going to be kind of leading on those days. It can't happen that way in all situations because some of them also are under contract with us as a professional teacher, so they can't do both on those days. But in most cases, it'll be run by the LEAP site director with our support staff.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did I see another hand earlier for a question or comment for Lynn?
Is it Christy with her fly swatter?
We have a, they're swarming, so I apologize because I'm trying to, but hard.
Honestly, it was only like 30 seconds ago that I noticed that there's a bear sitting next to you, so I probably wasn't the fly swatting. I have to move screens, but I think that we're at principal reports, right?
Yes.
I know I had an opportunity to read them all. I'm just curious how things are going in Sheldon, Christy, and if you're feeling ready to have the doors opened as that is coming on us quickly.
I am told we will be ready.
And you know, the thing is, no matter the construction project, they're never, and no matter how much time you give them, things are never as quick as you'd like them to be. So it won't be perfect, it won't be pretty, but we'll make it happen, right?
Yep, we will.
Questions, comments, concerns from any of the board members to the principals about their reports, or any comments the principals want to make about your reports?
I just wanted to say a quick thing. In my handbook, there was something I wanted to mention. It was an old piece of the handbook that I intended to take out, and it's in the sports section. And it talks about if you were absent a day before an event, that you couldn't be in the sporting event the next day if you were back. And I intended to take that out. I took it out of the absentee part, but I didn't take it out of the sports and athletic part. So I just wanted to mention that that is coming out.
I think a lot of parents will be happy to hear that.
Me too.
As I saw those handbooks come through, and I'll be the first to say I haven't read them all. I haven't even read the Bakersfield one, and I have a kid there, but you know. We had talked at this time last year, and I know we're in a whole different world than we were last year, about some congruency amongst those handbooks across the school principals and school buildings. Did we make any progress on that at all? And really, I think a lot of the feedback I got was partially about athletics, like rules around, just like what you were mentioning, Rhoda.
I think that our intention to make progress on that was there. Yeah. I think we've been crushed under reopening, and we just could not make it happen this year. I will say they have written their reopening, the COVID part of it together. That is FNESU consistent. You guys, I know, worked on that as a whole SU. So we got that far. We won't drop it from our radar next year. We know it's important to the board, and we know it's work that needs to be done, but it didn't meet our like above the reopening stuff this year, unfortunately.
This is Mary, and I apologize. I kind of timed out and couldn't, my thing froze. So really, this may be more for you, Lynn, or the principals may be able to weigh in. I would just love an update on athletics, K to 12, and where that all stands for fall sports, and if there are appreciable differences between K to 8 and high school sports, that would be great to know as well.
So I can start if the principals want to jump in. We just had a meeting about this. I'm losing track of time these days, a couple days ago maybe. So the high school sports guidance came out a couple of weeks ago at this point, and it is outlining that there are no competitions between schools whilst we're continuing to be at step 2. So what they're tipping is they're thinking if our health data stays strong by around September 21st, there may be an ability for us to shift to a step 3. If that shift happens, teams would be able to begin competing with other towns, other schools. So I'm going to go back to the step 2 piece. So practices can start for athletic teams on September 8th. There are really strict guidelines about what needs to happen. It's outlined in our reopening plan. So in one of the first pages, it has the overview table of all of the sections, and fall sports is one of those. So it's things like facial coverings for everyone, athletes, spectators, officials, coaches, all of it. Physical distancing between families that are watching, physical distancing for kids who are on the bench, mask breaks for kids if they need it, like not having maybe a 40-minute half, having some planned breaks. And I know a few years ago, the VPA changed that rule. If it was over a certain temperature, you'd have to stop every so many minutes to have more frequent breaks as well. So a lot of those pieces are in play. There's also information about, things like spitting and mouth guards and things like that, preventing those things from happening. I think that, I think I said the crowd size, right? Under 150. So the middle school piece, we met, and it's pretty consistent with what other SUs and SDs are doing around the state. So modeling it after the high school, we don't want to be less restrictive than the high school. We want to be able to offer something for our kids. So starting practices September 8th, doing inter-squad drills focusing on skill development and doing some inter-squad scrimmages, and maybe even doing some co-ed scrimmages within a school, but not across schools. So if there's a shift to a step 3, it would be okay to be able to shift to competition. What we agreed to for this year was to keep it SU specific competitions, and that's pretty consistent with other parts of the state as well, is that they're trying to not spread their kids across multiple SUs at the middle and elementary level. And what else? So we talked about how some of our teams are probably not going to be able to have full squads because we have a history of combining towns to make full squads. So if one town goes to another town and there are only 7 players on the other team, you're going to play 7-on-7 on a half field. So we'll make it work with the towns that we're playing against. What am I missing? Principals, what am I missing in there?
What sports are we talking about exactly? Do you know? I'm sure soccer.
There's some rules around cross country.
What falls into fall?
Only fall, Jean Marie. That by the second week in October, they're saying that the winter sport guidance will be out. Lenny, did I miss anything? Rhoda, Sandy, Christy?
I think you covered everything. That was the one piece that was challenging, was not being able to mix schools. So recognizing that we need to have half field games if we need to.
Yeah. And it'll be a 3-5 cluster and a 6-8 cluster for teams is also how we decided to move forward. So I just got the summary information out to principals today. So I know they're going to be turning that into communication to families as well.
We talked about, did you mention the piece, Lynn, about the coaches will have to do health screening? So if you're a fully remote kid can play in the game, can play on a team, and if a practice is on a cohort A day, the cohort B kid can come, he would have to pass the screening that would be administered by the coach.
So it's likely, because they're going to be kids coming from all different places, it might be that even the student who has been in person that day, it might be challenging for the coaches to track who's in person on this day and who's not in person on this day. So it's likely they'll do a health screen before every practice or game, just for all the kids. Something that I'm going to work with the nurses on tomorrow. Anything else on that, Mary?
No, thanks, Lynn. That's really helpful. I appreciate it.
So do you have a happy soccer player in your home now?
I definitely have a happy soccer player in my home right now. That is good stuff.
Good.
Is it that we're at the end of you, Lynn?
So I think you were on principals.
Oh, right. We were on principals. Any other comments, questions, or concerns for the principals? Okay. Now we're to Morgan, I think.
I think so too. So in my report, I mentioned the audit. You'll now start getting monthly financial reports for the new year on the new budget. And then I also put in, mostly for your information, the proposed budget development schedule for your FY22 budgets. One thing that I wanted to point out to you is the annual meeting date has not been set by the voters in NMV. February 17th would be the equivalent of the day that we picked last year, and that was scheduled to come before the school break, if that's still a thing, and on an opposite night from the Enosburg-Richford district annual meeting. I will leave this on my report every month, and eventually we'll stop knocking down dates. But I think the thing to tune into is that November, 2 months from now, is when we'll get the first look at your expense budget, and it won't be until mid-December that some of the pieces start falling into place, which will let us know where tax rates are going to go. Lynn talked a little bit about funding for COVID expenses. We have submitted an initial grant for receiving FEMA money, which would be 75 cents on the dollar. We would be required to apply for that if it's available before we could get any CRF money, based on how the statute was written for CRF money. As far as I know, nobody really knows whether school districts are eligible for FEMA yet, so we're submitting applications, but we don't know really if that's going to come through or not. I submitted our first CRF application today. They asked for a guess in terms of expenses, and currently there was an allotment of about 49 million to the Agency of Education from the CRF. About, I think, 12 million or so was targeted specifically to summer food service. There are some other little carve-outs, some for independent schools and some for HVAC specific projects. So right now it's somewhere in the mid-30s, I believe, of CRF money that's kind of available for general use by SUs and STs. The application that I put in today anticipated 3.5 million in expenses that would be potentially eligible. So if you think about our size relative to the rest of the state, that 37 million is going to disappear pretty quickly. There's been a lot of frustration, as you've known since March, about guidance from the AOE. I would say in the last month, it's become pretty clear that there's not a lot of cooperative communication between the Agency of Administration and the Agency of Education, and that's kind of the source of a lot of the bad information or late information or incomplete information that that we're getting. One example of that recently is that there's another 100 million of CRF money that has yet to be allocated from the legislature. Until recently, it was being talked about as if that was going to be going towards education. And most recently, we're hearing the Agency of Administration back off of that. And one of the justifications for it was from the Education Commissioner, who said, well, they don't think we're going to need all that money because the applications for the ESSER money have been minor so far. And the reason the applications to ESSER have been minor so far is that we were told not to apply for it yet, though we wanted to work through the CRF money first. So we're all sitting on our applications, and they're now sort of floating that balloon as a reason why we're not going to get more CRF money. So that's, I guess, a long way of saying we really don't know what's going to come down the pike. We were told that recently that it doesn't look like there's going to be a clawback, but the way that they're asking for information from us would make it very easy for them to claw back funds if they figure out how to do that. So most of the business managers in the state think that that is still on the table somewhere. Any questions on that?
Morgan, I'll see if I can try to get you some clarity as to what you're supposed to be doing with those applications.
Mm-hmm. That'd be great. And I think if they're going to use it as an excuse, we'll go in and we'll apply for all the money, even if we don't know what we're going to use it for. The money is more restrictive than CRF. So what we were originally told was to wait on that, get everything covered that you can through CRF, and then we'll start chipping away at that. The other difference is that that ESSER money can be used for a longer run out. So that'll go into, I think, April of next year, whereas CRF money can only cover things through December. The no real changes from last month on the Sheldon project. The last week is has been a great test of faith for Christy. Going in on the beginning of this week, to the untrained eye, it would look like there was no chance that school was going to start, but Spates and the architect and the clerk who have been around projects like this have all said, oh, that's actually in pretty good shape for a Tuesday opening. Crews will definitely be in there over the Labor Day weekend, but barring any other unforeseen circumstances, kids will be back, and the inside of the building will definitely be there for their use. Some of the things that are pushed off for later fall works primarily around the outside of the building and the locker rooms, which we're not allowed to use yet anyway. The only thing that's not on my report that I wanted to tip you to is around the small schools grant. We had talked last month, and I think where we left it was that we had a senator who was willing to try to add some verbiage to a bill that would clarify that Montgomery should be eligible for that. He wanted language on that, so we punted that to our lawyer, who was willing to take a draft at that, but wanted to run the language he had by the AOE. And in their conversations back and forth, the AOE decided, well, actually, the way that statute is written, Montgomery should be eligible for it, but they never submitted an application, and that's why they didn't get it. And so I looked back through all my notes. We never had any information that came in on an application. So I reached out to some of my colleagues who I know were in similar merge situations and who did receive the funds, and none of them submitted applications either. They just got the money based on the criteria as we all expected. So pushing back on the agency on that now, and haven't been able to get anyone on the phone or get a response to that. But it appears that for this year, I think it's relatively safe, and my push to them is going to be how they keep us whole for last year when we should have been receiving it.
There again, Morgan, I'll inquire.
And I'll let you know if it does bounce back to needing some legislative action. But I kind of think at this point, somebody higher up told somebody lower down that they did it wrong, and they're trying to figure out how to make us go away now.
I'm not very good about going away, and I think they know that.
Nope. And it's the equivalent of almost a penny on the tax rate, and so we can't just let it go.
Morgan and I aren't very good at going away either, Lisa. I think they know that by now too.
And unless you have any questions, that's all I've got for you tonight.
Always uplifting news from you, Morgan. Thank you.
Happy to serve.
Any other questions or comments for Morgan? Okay, I think that brings us, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I had, not for Morgan, I just had a question back to the reopening handbooks and the regular handbooks, and just wondering how that's communicated. Does that go out to everybody by email, like all the schools?
Principals want to take that?
I think each school's doing theirs a little bit different. Sorry, Chris, I saw your hand. I'm being impatient. My school, we were traditionally we would send it out the first day of school, and we would give it out to like the oldest kid to bring it home to the family. But we decided that this year we're gonna send out an email to all the families that have access to email, and then still plan on mailing it out to the homes that don't regularly access email. That way we can get it to everybody out before the start of the school year. I've also been doing like little PSAs that kind of outline all of the general stuff that goes into that COVID related opening stuff. I've been sending stuff out the last 2 weeks that kind of cover all of that as well.
We're doing a similar thing, except we'll be sending it in that first week.
I thought we needed to send it early because it has all the COVID information in there. So we've been doing PSAs too, and I feel like our people might be getting a little inundated with information. So we're trying to space it out, but it was my hope for it to go out before Friday. And then they can have a hard copy too if they request one.
We typically don't hand out hard copies to everyone, but this year I did send just the reopening handbook part home to all our families.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, I think we are at board business, and I wondered if anybody had any future agenda items they wanted to mention at this moment. I am here from your future principals as a dean of a campus that's been open for a week and a half, and we have still survived, and it's really weird not having those buildings like filled to the brim. It's weird seeing people in mass and not being able to hug students and give them high fives and let them see your smile. So it's weird, but we've all survived, and I know that you all will too. So I'm really looking forward to our next meeting in a month where you guys can tell us how all of this, tremendous amount of effort that you put in this summer has really paid off and made your first 30 days go as smooth as you possibly could hope it to be. So good luck. You know that we all have your backs, and we think the world of you all. And we know that you've worked so hard this summer. I've been thinking, like, should I send you each like a bag of coffee or a bottle of vodka? And I'm kind of thinking maybe both for each of you would be most appropriate. So thank you again. Keep your chins up. Keep smiling. Give them the air high fives when you see them in the hallway. Any other comments from the board or anything else we want to put on the agenda for the next meeting?
Just a request that when you send the vodka to them, please don't send it to school.
I'll meet them privately in the parking lots, Lynn. Lisa? Did you want to say something, Lisa?
Yeah, sure. If I can unmute myself, I've been having trouble with that. I just want to echo what Jean Marie said, that we are so proud of all school employees, staff, faculty. I know the kids are really excited, and parents are too. And just good luck to you. And whatever happens, we're going to work with it. We're all in this together. So thank you very much for all your hard work.
Okay, thank you all. I think if you will each give me a thumbs up, I will take that as your acknowledgement of an adjournment at 7:42 p.m. Thank you all.